You can see on the screen we've got some color fuse lined up. Those will be the ones we're using in this set. This is set number 3316. And so let's get started. I'm going to take the lighter one from the orange set, and I'm going to use a sponge dauber and just apply a little bit of color to this sheet. And then I'll pick up the apricot and do the same thing with that. You can see the color fuse blends nicely. And now we're going to use a little bit of color burst. This is a watercolor. It's not related to the color fuse, but so we got a little bit of spray of water out here, and I'm going to use a paintbrush and a clean paintbrush. Let's clean that off a little bit. And I'm going to pick up some of the colors that I've got in the tray here. This first one is a green, and we'll sprinkle that one down. And then two more colors. And we'll just get random little drips and dots. The ones that come at the end of your full paintbrush are smaller, so it's nice for the variety. So that's a nice combination. We'll set that aside and we'll clean up the table a little bit. So now we've cut that down to size 4 by 5 1/4. We're going to attach it to a colored backing. Now we're going to stamp some of the flowers. The flowers won't be stamped directly on that. They'll all be die cut out. So here we go. It's number 3316, Autumn Fire. It's a brand new set. And I'll show you how we stamp a couple of those and some of the leaves. And then we've got a lot of it already pre-cut out for you, so you don't have to watch all the stamping, but we thought you might be interested in some of it. So I position these two stamps in the same basic direction. And there's one spot on these in this stamp set, on each of the stamps, that I'd like to use as my index spot. And you'll determine which one that is for you. It isn't identified on the set. It doesn't make a difference. But there's one spot there on the left side of each of those that is kind of isolated. And so I use that. And matter of fact, we'll put a little dot right on the back of the plastic of the stamp. You see that one's already got one on it, and it helps me to remember that's the spot I want to use. So we use the lemon from the Color Fuse yellow set, it's the number 1, and then the citrus, the number 1 from the orange set, and the apricot, the number 2 from the orange set. And we'll finally use crimson, that's the number 4 from the red set. So you can see the dot on the left. It reminds me that that goes in that spot. And the same with this one. And now the apricot. I use a motion that's kind of a turn motion when I stamp on the clear sets, just to help work the ink into the stamp a little bit, push it down. But it still requires 2 and 3 stampings of it because these stamps are real new. And I don't like roughing them up I'll use an eraser occasionally to take a little bit of the tooth off or the slickness off. Um, and then this one I use, there's three little bumps that are on the stamp, and I use those to line up the stamp, and everything else just kind of falls into place when you move it back and forth. Um, so we use the crimson, give us a nice bright red final stamp here. 3 times, maybe even 4. Nice and bright. One more. I have found that the red from our set doesn't tend to want to come off the stamp unless you're using a good stamp cleaner. And I don't have anything that's water-based, so my stamps are turning pink. But let's put down the 3 leaves that come in the set. 2 single leaves and 1 multi-pronged leaf. And here we'll use moss and basil from our green set. That's the 2nd and 4th cubes in that set. And you can use the first one and the third one, and it'll give you basically the same thing, but in a lighter shade. And it's nice to do that sometimes in conjunction with the 2nd and the 4th to get a little contrast in things so that everything isn't always just the same color, a little more natural. The outline on these guys, it's not a perfect match, so you don't have to be real precise with it. So we'll stamp these with the basil. We'll get a nice dark accent. You can also use the first cube and the third cube in the set, and it'll give you a lighter shade of leaf. And we've done that in the ones we're going to actually build the card with. So let's take a look at the dies for these things. The set has 2 flowers and 3 leaf dies. Here's the package for it, 3316D. So now we've got a phrase we've got to put on here. So we're going to stamp this with Versamark on a piece of black cardstock. And we're going to emboss it with white. Little white embossing powder. What can you say about embossing powder? It's white and it melts beautifully, and you can see it just pop right up here. All right, so let's assemble the card for all the pieces. There's our base again. Get you a little closer to that. And these just have some double stick tape on them. And we'll just place them around this one side. A couple leaves, a flower. We're going to put 4 flowers onto it. Pop them up over the top of each other. The dies make it so easy to create without having to use mass. You can move things around until you have them right where you want them. And our little sentiment. And there you have our finished card. That's the first one.